Okay, I'll just kick off. Welcome. This is our very first Instagram Live. And we've been on Instagram for a while now with all you guys following us. These sessions are called AGA Sessions. And I'll just give you a bit of a background to these chats before our first guest will join us. So for us, architecture is about people, and it's about, what we do is we change people's lives in a positive way. The current situation with the pandemic is very challenging, and what it has made the path forward for families who are planning to extend or build a new home much less clear than it was a couple of weeks ago. So what we want to do is to focus these sessions on our clients rather than speaking to other architects. So we'll be focusing on clients and their home, and we'll be chatting to clients and end users from all sectors, so domestic, commercial, public sector, retail, hospitality, on how we as architects can help people manage this new dynamic at home. So it's this new work-life situation. So this evening we're joined by our clients, Lysette and Richard, for whom we are redesigning their house in North London. And the topic of today's chat is about dialogue, and it's about the communication between architects and the client, and architects and the clients, and how this communication has changed over the past 5 weeks. If you have any questions, please comment below, and we can answer them at the end of the discussion. So next week we're gonna have 2 more guests, a musician who's a friend and also an architect, so that should be interesting, and also my brother, who's a psychoanalyst. So I'm really looking forward for both of these, and I will post details of these chats later on this week. So stay tuned. I'm just waiting for our clients to show up, so please bear with me. Sorry. First technical glitch. I'm just gonna text them. Really sorry. They should be here very soon. So, how are you all doing? Is everyone healthy and safe? Do you want to ask any questions while we wait? Okay, there she is. Okay. So we're joined now with Lysette and Richard. Hello.
We got confounded by technology.
Okay, me too, slightly. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Apart from communication problems.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. I've never done sort of a live session before, so hopefully it goes well.
We're glad to be your guinea pigs.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks very much for agreeing to be our very first guests. Seems like we've got 26 people watching us.
So I gave a brief description or about the format of these chats. So I'll quickly introduce you. So this is Lysette and Richard, our clients from North London, for whom we're designing a house or a house refurbishment and extension. And we were appointed, I think, about a month before the crisis, or a couple of weeks. So we met face to face when everything was normal, and then the crisis happened, and now we're meeting virtually. So the topic of this chat is really about how our dialogue has changed quite drastically, and how our communication has changed. And is it working? Is it not? What can be improved? And so on. So my first, I guess, comment is previously when we met face to face is a lot different than meeting virtually, because when you're face to face, you can read someone's body language, which you can't really in the virtual world. So what, in your experience of how we communicating at the moment, what has really changed for you, and how do you feel about it?
Okay. Firstly, I think I'm really glad that we've met beforehand, because I think a really important thing about this process is forming some kind of like a relationship, an understanding with you, and it's obviously easier when you meet someone in person. However, I think having done a couple of Zoom calls with you, I think we've started to get into a rhythm of understanding. It is definitely hampered a little bit by the structure of the technology. So really only one person can talk at a time. And so, but I think once you get into the conversation, it does flow a little bit easier. It's much more, it's a little bit more transactional, I guess, because it's more difficult to have those niceties and chats that we like to do.
Yeah.
But it's working. You just have to work a bit harder at it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
What I find, for instance, is when you're speaking to someone virtually, you really have to look at them all the time. You can't really hide like you can when you're face to face, when you kind of look around and so on. So when you so that's quite interesting. Do you think there's any benefits with an online communication, or are we not there yet?
I think the benefits are kind of in a way the obvious ones, that in situations where you can't meet, and obviously we're in exceptional circumstances now, it means that, were this to be normal times and you were to say, oh, Richard, Lysette, I want you to look over the plans with us, and we work in two different places with busy people. I realize now we could utilize this technology quite easily to do that. I don't think, were we in normal times, it would replace. I think it would supplant. And I think more easily, probably all of us having been through this experience, would now find it easier to reinforce our everyday real transactions with this. I think we would all prefer, actually, even despite the time lost of traveling to go to places or whatever, or having a cup of tea before you sit down and have a chat with, I think that in-person person contact is really, really important. And I find it hard to believe that we would have even started this project had, you know, the two of us, not met you face to face, Amos, because we got a measure of each other. We sort of, part of when, like with anything, when you're buying a service, you're often buying the person, particularly something that's important to you as redesigning your home.
Yeah, which is a very, I mean, for us and for you, it's a very personal service or connection.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you had the opportunity to come into our home and have a look around, and I think possibly, I mean, you could answer this one, but you know, issues and points come up because you're walking around having a look, and more so than when you're sitting having kind of a direct conversation.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the big changes for us is that when we sit with part of what we do, or the communication skills, is the fact that we can sit in front of you, the client, and kind of sketch our ideas with you on a piece of paper. And now we're limited with that. I was going to share. So we've been I don't know if you can see that. So we've been sharing with Lysette and Richard our desktop or programs. So sharing screens. So this is a presentation that we prepared beforehand, and then we reviewed it online with them, and this we put together fully rendered walkthrough model that we can go through the inside and everything, which I think helps. And then with the software, it does allow you to kind of sketch over it and so on, and kind of try and bridge this sort of gap that we have. I don't know if any of our audience, if you have any suggestions of software that we can use, or that you've used that was beneficial to you, or that can bridge that gap better. Just see more questions. What advice would you give to people thinking about starting a project at the current situation? Would you
God, everything's just so odd. I wouldn't completely discourage it, because I think there are probably lots of useful conversations that can be had now. I mean, I don't, from an architect's perspective, how easy it is to do something like this if you've not been and seen the property. But in terms of initial conversations and ideas, I think it is possible to start a project like this now. It's not the best way to do it, obviously. And as I said, I think we kind of built a very short relationship with you, but nevertheless one that worked. So I wouldn't completely discourage it.
I think the key word there is start, right? Yeah. Which is that you can start it, and you can start it maybe in another way, which is you can start by saying, you know, exchanging views about what you think, and the way, as opposed to, I should guess, the normal first step for you would be to come in and survey the house. And, you know, maybe there's certain things that we, in these extraordinary circumstances, could do, which is, you know, obviously we'd show you pictures or take a video of it, but you just, we look over ideas. So you could start it, but the serious execution of it, I mean, where we find ourselves now is that, you know, we're looking at, really, we're getting down to the nitty gritty on the plans. And I don't think we could have got to this stage had you not been physically be able to come into the house, to walk around, and quite possibly for us to have met, because it's a relationship between the client, us, and you, the architect, is one really of it's both trust and a sort of understanding. And I think we got the understanding from you that you got us.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
You know, that how risk averse or not we were, and what we wanted to do creatively with the space. And then I think once you find that you're on the same page as someone, you know, then you trust, and you take, that's like anything really. It's a bit like dating, I guess. You know,
yeah. Well, like I said, like I said when we first met, that way I see it is like it's a speed dating in the beginning, where we have a short period of time for us to get to know you, and know your good habits and your bad habits, so that we can properly respond to your brief and to the way of life and so on. So yeah, that's a very interesting point. We're getting it. Yeah.
Sorry, just to add also, I mean, the way that we found you, was that you were doing some marketing in a farmer's market.
Correct. Yeah, at Ali Pali.
Richard picked up leaflets, and so, you know, even at that point, that was the kind of first personal meeting, and then it continued from there. So actually, our first meeting, not mine, say Richard's, was outside of the house, somewhere, and so and then that drew us to connect with you. Yeah. So that personal piece is definitely very important.
Yeah. We have a few questions. So it's not appearing yet. So Build Past UK is asking, how did you choose the architects to approach? I guess that's for you.
3 architects.
Yeah, we met with 3 architects. You were one of the 3. We had recommendations from people that we knew, I think is where it came from. And then, as I said, we met, or we found you in the farmers markets, doing some clever marketing there.
But I would say it's interesting. I think the way we came across those 3 architects was quite distinct and quite interesting. So one was someone in our road who was doing similar work and recommended their architect. The other one was a popular sort of someone who works in the area, a company which does a lot of, you see their placards everywhere, right? Who does, you know, extensions and what have you. So we contacted them. And the third one was this coincidental meeting that I had, you know, running through the farmers market and seeing, you know, running to a halt midway through my run, because I saw your stall and thought, oh, that's curious. And I grabbed a couple of, you know, words as I was trying to gather my breath. So very different sources in a way. And I think, like a lot of things, you know, there's different routes, like with any transaction that you find yourself coming to. And this was probably, you know, the unconventional kind of, you know, fate played a hand in that I happened to be running then. And I don't know if indeed, you know, I would have stumbled across your architectural practice had that not happened. Yeah. So, you know, there's an aspect of sort of fate playing in there, I think. Really.
Yeah, destiny.
Yeah.
Okay. There was an earlier question from Syed. Syed, if you're still there, let me just, I can scroll back. Okay. So Shutter Speed is asking, is the process a bit slower now, and can it be a good thing?
Is it slower?
Well, the process, I mean, for example, depending on which process we're talking about here, I don't think the architectural process, the design process and discussions are necessarily slower. We can and we do get together with yourself, Amos, and your 2 associates and talk. Now, the other things, for example, finance, which we're going through at the moment, now we've been told that it's much slower because, of course, you know, the functioning of lenders. We're lucky. We're not asking. the terms of what we're asking for are probably feasible even under these extraordinary circumstances. But we've been warned it's going to take longer, and extraordinary things have happened. So in this time, for example, my accountant is in hospital critically unwell.
Oh,
so we couldn't get certain information.
Yeah.
And they've had to, in a way, forgive us the fact that certain information is not immediately available on hand.
Yeah.
So given the fact that we are in sort of this crisis period, you know, you can find workarounds, but it does make the process longer and more complicated.
Okay. Yeah, I think I should just add to that you know, the things going on outside of this process also, because of the circumstances now, mean that I'm not quite sure whether we've had quite enough time, just the two of us, to even sit and discuss certain things of work that's going on at home in the businesses that we work in, which are both, you know, we're trying to work at home. We've got children here who need to have an education.
Yeah.
And there's kind of vast amounts of cooking to be done all the time. So, you know, all of those things mean that the pace of life has altered. I'm not sure whether it's faster or slower. It's just very different. So the kind of the conversations that we'd hope to have probably haven't happened in the way we'd want them to always.
Okay. IDF Lifestyle Technology, it's one of our colleagues, Tass, is asking, what are the key factors you look for in choosing your architect?
Obviously charm. I think one of the, well, I don't know, and we've never done this before, but so I'll tell you about this bit of process, is that when you came in to meet with us and we chatted and kind of threw around the kind of ideas that we've had actually for about 10 years, we've been thinking about doing this work, is that you very kind of quietly took them away with you and came up with something very beautiful. And I think that was probably it.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me there are a few things which resonated, which I liked very much. So I felt that it was an appreciation. It wasn't necessarily the appreciation wasn't just commercial, that you were selling us something. You know, that I felt that there was a meeting of minds and understanding. So early on, you and I somehow or other got onto talking about a Brazilian architect, Oscar Niemeyer, who, you know, I happen to have written an article on, and you happen to have
idolize,
and talking about him, and then we exchanged various ideas around design, about something that I work in audio, about a program that, you know, so various things came up, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, this person kind of gets me, and I think I get this person, and I sort of like this person. You don't have to like someone who you're getting a service from, but it kind of it helps.
It helps, yeah.
But not only the likability, it's also the fact that you're involved. Both of us work in the creative industries, and you're involved in the creative process. And when you're involved in the creative process, it's clear there is some transaction involved, but there's something else involved, which is the idea that you're sharing something. Really, you're embarking on something together. That, you know, we're entrusting this to you. So there's an aspect of trust there. More than commercial trust, you know, and I think that was something that we were able to establish quite early on when we met.
That's true. I've got another question from Pamela Anderson Pictures. Did you already have an idea of what you wanted, or did the architect come with the ideas?
We had a vague idea of the space that we wanted to create and the rooms that we wanted to change, but we had an issue that we didn't think we could solve, or we couldn't see it ourselves, and you came and helped us to solve that problem. So I think that it was your ideas that have brought the project to life, that have helped us to see it in a way that feels really exciting.
Well, my comment to Pamela, my advice is always for clients to start with their brief, and even before you start communicating with architects, just start writing it down and collecting images of things that you like. It's better when it's on paper rather than in your head, and that will be the start of our discussion. And you can just put everything you can think of, even ideas that might seem crazy to you or too expensive. It might not be, and at least it's on paper, and then it will start the dialogue, and that's when kind of ideas will start flowing. Will thing is asking what was the problem? Don't know. Build Pass UK asking another question. Sorry, Lysette, Richard, do you have time or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think some architects run away with their own ideas and soon ends up from something different to the client's ideas? Well, I guess it's if we kind of hijack things, then.
So it's very interesting in that we had 3 architects come through the house, and one of them was used to doing very sort of clearly had a template upon which they operated, and came in here and was very sort of like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to close that off there, and and I felt that architect ran ahead of where we were, where our thinking was, and wasn't listening to us, was trying to sort of, again, as I say, fill a template. And it, personally speaking, it put me off, because I think it's you particularly on something like this where it's your home, and to make it clear, I mean, this house is kind of, when our sort of 12 and 14, we want to see this as our home from which they will, from this point, live and go off. Maybe they'll go up from whenever they leave home. It's really important to us that we build the kind of home that we want to live in with our family, and therefore you need someone who is listening quite closely to you. And if they're just coming in and sort of fulfilling a template that they have in their mind, then what it does is it puts you off. And immediately, on the basis of that one transaction, that one meeting with that particular architect, I had put whatever, I put a line through that person's name, and I was like, nope, doesn't work, because they weren't attentive to us, they were attentive to them.
Yeah. We need to wrap up soon, so I'm just gonna so shutter speed, sorry, where was it? Okay, Shutter Speed is another Oscar Niemeyer fan, saying you can't go wrong with Oscar Niemeyer. I agree. Wilding was asking, he's asked, what was the issue, Amos, that we solved? Just to give you background, Andrew, I know it's you. We're still pre-planning, so we haven't submitted a planning application yet, but I think we are nearing a solution.
But do you want me to, because the issue wasn't here just about the architecture, it was also about the use of space. So we live in a Edwardian terrace, which has a kind of joined up, now it was a separate front room, lounge and rear room, dining room, and then there's a kitchen out the back, and there's a side return. And it was filling in the side return, and then knowing how we were going to use the existing space so that it wouldn't become superfluous, so that everything became a living, used space. And we had initially had ideas about how we were going to refashion some of that space. And we kept coming up with this. We think that the space that is going to be the dining room, which is actually the room on the rear of the house, will still be the dining room, but how are we going to use it? And in fact, the way in which you resolved that was that you suggested something else, which was using that room, that space, for another purpose. And all of a sudden, it's sort of, I think, a light bulb went off in our head collectively. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. That means the space we're adding is going to be used, and the space we've got is also going to be used, and then we also thought about what architectural features, the style of it, because style, we didn't want a standard kind of extension. We wanted kind of trying to sound too pretentious, and was attractive and different and functional, and that's kind of where we're at the moment. But you resolved, I think, this question that we had, which was, how are we going to use this space and make sure it is used?
Okay, I think we're close to wrapping up, unless anyone has one final question or thought. Okay, the First Sun House is asking, how long ago have you met?
Well, us.
So I don't know. I guess
think
us.
I think when we went, it's probably less relevant to this conversation.
Probably. We'll leave that for some other time. So I guess they joined a bit late. Yeah, a couple, 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lysette and Richard. Really nice to have you as our first guests. Thank you everyone for joining.